and welcome to Rolling with Two. I'm Will, and with me as always is the person who says dragon when I ask her, how's the best way to build a city?
Sarah.
And today we're doing a two-player perspective and accessibility for Blue Moon City. This is the Cool Mini or Not version, so not the first edition.
Correct.
If you're curious about our opinions, check out our other video, Rolling with Reviews, Blue Moon City. Sarah, tell us a bit about this game.
All right. The object of the game is to help rebuild Blue Moon City.
Dragon!
And put the obelisk crystal back together. Cards are discarded in sets of color to rebuild the city tiles. The players who help with the building get rewards such as cards, dragon favors, and crystals. The player who adds the required number of markers to the obelisk wins the game. Okay, so how do the rules change for two players, Will?
The number of players will change certain little bits of setup for every player count. So for two players, it's the number of dragon scales is the least at 7. It goes up from there. And then the number of spaces for building the obelisk, where you can put your tokens on, is 11.
Right.
And this is a race to the finish, so the first to 6 wins.
For a two-player count.
For a two-player game, which is why you have 11, because you can be tied at 5 and 5.
And so basically the obelisk is double-sided for the different player accounts.
Yeah, because every space on the obelisk has a value that you need to pay to put your marker there.
Right.
And so it has escalation, which is why it needs its two different sides with different printing. And there is no bot.
No bot whatsoever.
But there's little dragon miniatures, so...
They have bot, they have benefits. That's more of what it does. Okay.
They don't have bot qualities because you control them.
Exactly. So, issues at a two-player count, well, the board is too large, especially if the players go in opposite directions.
Yeah, and there is a mini expansion, I think, in the box that's 4 extra tiles, which just get added to it, making the map even larger.
Yeah, and this is just kind of one of the problems with not like it's a map-based, but it's tile-based. When you don't restrict or make the board smaller for a lesser player count, that is usually what you have, is a problem of, now the board is too big, especially because you're supposed to not exactly help each other, but you need other people to finish these tiles. It takes a lot of work to do it yourself.
Yeah, one of the core mechanics is every tile will have a number of contribution spaces. And on your turn, you can donate by discarding cards to fulfill these requirements. You can fill as many as you want. However, when someone else comes along and helps you build it, anyone who has helped in building gets a reward.
Right.
And it's a core concept of the game. So if I'm at the north part of the map and Sarah's at the southern, that whole interaction is just gone in a two-player game. And it's very obvious.
Right, and then it's up to who gets luckiest with the cards, that they can fulfill the tiles around them and just get ahead faster.
Yeah.
So that's a bit lackluster, and we racked our brains and couldn't really think of an easy way to reduce the space, because you need to be able to generate crystals to be able to donate to the obelisk, and the main way to do that is to finish these tiles. So you can't just take tiles away without also adjusting how many obelisk spaces. It's too complicated.
Yeah, and it's pretty obvious that the designers did recognize this, because even though we were in opposite directions, it still fit the time frame that is listed on the box.
Yeah, so it didn't take us any longer. It just wasn't the most engaging experience.
Yeah.
That's really what the problem is
It's like, here's something very interesting. Well, that's nice. Let's never talk about it.
You go to your corner, I go to mine.
But it's here. It's super shiny. It's nice. Yeah. That's nice for you. Okay.
Also, unfortunately, a two-player count, that also means that one of the card abilities, which is to help players get ahead by being able to turn in crystals for the obelisk. I
think that is called donation.
It is donation?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's contribution when you're building the lesser tiles. It's donation because you don't actually get a reward back for building the obelisk.
Yeah.
Because that's just the end game, is a race to the finish.
So there's these yellow cards. Normally you can only make one donation per turn. But with the yellow cards, you have to pay more crystals, but it would allow you to do 2 in one turn. These are probably really essential at a higher player count, because if there's 3 other people before you get your next turn, that could make the difference between spending 9 or 12 crystals to put yourself on the obelisk. So if you could do 9 twice, but you have to pay 2 extra crystals to use this card, that might be worth it. But in a 2-player game, there was never a point where that was important, because like I can do 1, so at worst Will's gonna do 1 on his turn. It just, the emphasis on using those cards just really wasn't there.
Yeah.
So but what it does well, and this is again going to be kind of depends on your type of player, it's a lower intensity game at 2-player counts. There is no real stress here to get things done. So it's like a leisurely stroll through the city that is destroyed that you're rebuilding.
Yeah, and there are clever little plays in here, but yeah, overall the vibe of the game is pretty relaxed at a 2-player count.
Right. That's it then. That's the 2-player experience. So,
all right, accessibility.
So unfortunately, they tried with colorblind accessibility. They succeeded on the cards in that there is a pattern around the border that identifies each of the colors, and there are 8 different colors. Yeah, Will's over there. They didn't use it on the tiles. So the tiles are still just the straight color. And the problem here is this kind of spills over into what I would call normal vision issues. There's red and brown, and they are relatively close in color that if you're not playing in really bright light, you could get them mixed up. I got them mixed up. So that's an issue. But then there's also just general other issues for those who have colorblind challenges.
Yeah, you would have probably also had a problem with blue and green, except the only tile out there that needs green is one of the expansion tiles. Because normally the green ability is they're wilds and they can be used for donating to any color.
Yeah, so yeah, only that expansion tile even needs green. So that is unfortunate that they got it halfway, but not for the other half of the game. There's also no names on these cards or tiles, which is weird because the rule book uses names. Again, I think this was made in a time where they were really focusing on language independence so that they could repackage it for other languages. But then the problem comes is if you're using these words in the rule book to refer to cards and tiles, but they're not on the cards or tiles, and you don't really have a reference or frame for the pictures, it's useless. It's useless.
Yes.
It's just useless.
It's like saying, well, you know, Jobu.
What?
What?
What's a Jobu?
I don't. Yeah. The only Jobu I know was on the movie Major League, and it was. But.
Yeah.
Huh?
Moving on.
That's what it feels like.
I know it is what it feels like. The dragons are all the same shape. So again, they only have a colored base to tell them apart. And there is, blue, green, and red. And leading off of that, they did not do the easy thing where the red cards control the red dragon and the green cards control the green dragon. Although the blue cards do control the blue dragons.
It's like they're just thumbing their nose
at
you.
No, the black cards control
the red dragon.
The red dragon. And then the red cards control the green dragon. And the blue is the only one that actually controls the blue. I don't know what they were thinking. They really should have made that easier and just done their thematics differently. Like the colors in their world, there's no reason green should be this group of people or black should be that group of people or whatever. It's your world, make it up, but also make it usable.
Yeah, user friendly.
Yes.
Besides, what does it matter? They don't even care about the names.
Right?
They didn't put them on the cards. So
speaking of cards, the iconography, it's not that intuitive. However, there's only 8 different abilities. Well, there's 8 different abilities that have 2 different strengths, but they have generally the same iconography. So the 1s and 2s of every color.
Oh, you should say that every color, there's 8 different color cards.
Yes.
Each color has a value 1, 2, or 3.
Except green.
Green only has 1 value.
Yes.
And for all the other colors, the abilities only exist on the 1 and 2 value, with the 1s being the more powerful of the ability usually, and 2 being a lesser version of the ability.
Right. So the good news is, as you play it, you'll just learn what these cards do and not really even use the iconography. You'll just know that this card does this ability, kind of thing. It's easy to learn, but the learning portion could be a little challenging. You'll have to probably be your first game, look it up in the rule book or on the back, because it does actually have a good reference on the back.
Which is why Sarah was so frustrated with the black, red abilities. Like, why isn't the green control green and red control red, so I can just more easily play this game?
Yeah, it doesn't need to be that challenging. But speaking of other challenging, there might be some mobility issues because these tiles don't just stay there. You are rebuilding them. So when a tile gets finished, you have to take all the player tokens and any dragons on there off, flip over the tile, and put all those tokens back on. And of course, if you've played any tile laying games, that's going to knock the other tiles around. So then you have to readjust the whole board. So it does get irritating, but that also just could be a challenge for those who have mobility issues with their hands.
Yeah.
And then the rules do a good job of teaching and covering basic interactions. But we came across a few more complex situations where we were like, I want to use this card in this situation, but nothing addresses it. So,
or like the expansion tiles will introduce abilities on tiles. Like, well, does the thing have to be built? No, okay, it doesn't have to be built, but can I use it like this? And like, well, it doesn't really state that, and kind of not.
So the expansion tiles is probably where the complexity comes in. I think that's where we had questions, because we were like, I want to be creative and use this card in this particular way.
No, don't do that.
Just don't
do that. Don't be that creative.
All right, so that's everything that we found issues with. But what it does right, I mean, the player colors are pretty unique. There's a gray. It's kind of a dark gray, so almost black. White, pink, and a light blue. Now, the player pieces, like the main player piece, they're all uniquely shaped. And
anvils, pouring water.
Right, they all have to do with crafting or building. But you're going to have discs, and those are not unique between players.
You would have thought they'd print at least the player piece, like the anvil or the pouring bucket or the forge.
But this is a somewhat older game at this point, so I think they did some nice things, but then left a lot of stuff basic. So
basic.
On the cards, you'll never have an issue seeing the numbers. They did a really good job making them large enough. Then they have a stroke line. So no matter the color background, because we've had this issue in other games that rely on color, they make the numbers all the same color. So like they chose white. But then you put white on yellow, you can't even see it. But here it pops off. So we never had any issues with being able to read the numbers, which are one of the most important things to be able to see. And this is a mostly open information game. You're supposed to keep your hand of cards secret, but I read Will his cards and it didn't. There's very little I could do to stop him from doing anything. And I mean, I guess it could have given me some information.
Yeah, if you were more strategic about, like, well, I know he has this card, so he's probably going to go for that. She could just not have the cards to do anything about it. So it just was like, well, why do I bother, even if I have this extra information?
I'm not going to try to memorize what he has and whether he's played it or whatnot. Now, your crystals are supposed to be kept hidden so that you don't know exactly when someone's going to go, turn something in for the obelisk. For the most part, just because of how we do things, I have to move so many things around. I wasn't paying attention to his crystals.
But that's something also can be easily solved with the player shield.
Exactly. Okay, I think that's everything. Conclusion.
Okay. For 2 players, would you recommend?
Not really. This would not be my highest recommendation. I just don't think most people are going to enjoy it that much.
Yeah, the gameplay is just okay.
Yeah.
And I think the sweet spot is not 2 players.
Correct.
It's probably the 4-player count, if I'm honest. So no, would not recommend it for 2 players. Accessibility.
Mixed bag. I think there's going to be some color issues, even for normal folks, but definitely for those with colorblind challenges.
Yeah, with the sheer number of colors used in this and how important and integral it is in the game, color issues are going to be your biggest barrier.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to give a mixed bag, considering there's more people with color blind issues
now than ever.
Yeah, than say like me with like total blind accessibility issues.
Right.
So it's going to be a tough sell.
Yeah.
All right, but that will do it for us. And Sarah,
Yes.
why are the dragons so lazy at building this city?
I don't know, if they're all powerful and can give us great bonuses, yeah, why aren't they? Maybe it's because their claws are just not well suited for rebuilding. They can destroy very easily.
They can't like lift up some of the heavier
Yeah,
stones
you
or
got
something?
a point. They could probably put the obelisk back together much easier than we could.
As far as I could tell, they just came, watched us.
Yeah, they were just watching us.
And then shed.
Yeah, they gave us dragon scales. They're like, huh, you're doing a great job. Let me shake a few of these scales loose. There you go. Those are valuable.
How would you like me to come to your building site and just throw dandruff everywhere? Is that helpful? I don't think so. And why would you ever roll with just one when you can be rolling with two? If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with Two, that's TWO. We're on Blue Sky, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Discord, we have a channel on Tabletop Express. Check the show notes for the invite link.
If you have time, check out the other content Nanaman has found for you, because remember, he's rolling with you.